Hello, everyone. I am April. I'm joined here today by Cameron. We're from Tinybird, and we're here to talk to you all about how Tinybird can help take your DynamoDB data to the next level. So, Cameron, before we get started, what's your experience like using DynamoDB?
Yeah, I mean DynamoDB is a really cool database. I mean, I sort of understood it. I've worked in an AWS ecosystem for most of my career, but I didn't actually realize how fast it is. It is insanely fast, and it's insanely fast at pretty much any scale, which is what makes it so great and so exciting. Um, Obviously, we're going to talk about the scenarios in which it's not insanely fast or not capable,
Yeah.
and how Tinybird can complement that. But it's one of those technologies that has been really successful for AWS, and with good reason. It's a really powerful database.
Yeah. So, DynamoDB, it's a NoSQL database. You don't need to set your schema in advance, right? So as your use cases grow and maybe there's more different types of data you want to track, you don't need to create a whole new table. You don't need to update your schema or anything like that, which makes it very flexible to help with that scalability as well. But it is an OLTP database, right? It does transactional processing. It's really good at those fast individual records, reads and writes. But then when you want to do analytics, that's something that's better suited for an OLAP, an online analytical processing database like Tinybird, which is built on top of ClickHouse. So with all that being said, let's get into it. Let me head right over here. So today we're going to be talking through an airline use case. I really love airline, aviation, all of those things. It's pretty incredible when you think about the scale and the logistics of just all of the flights that are happening throughout every single day across all the countries, all these different companies working together. So I have this demo for an airline loyalty program. The repo is available. You can head on over to tbrd.co/airline-loyalty if you want to follow along there and try this out for yourself. But this is what we'll be working with. So you can imagine, right, when you're a major airline and you're tracking traveler activity, you have thousands of daily flights carrying hundreds of passengers each. And tracking all the different user activity like flight purchases, seat changes, check-ins. This is a great use case for a NoSQL database like DynamoDB. And when we're talking about the base level thing that we are going to need, it's, hey, I want to be able to look up a reservation. So in Dynamo, I have this airline reservation table. And our main partition key is going to be our record locator, right? Because we want to look up an individual reservation. Oh, and I have a little space there. Now, this is the bread and butter of DynamoDB. I have my key. I can look it up really, really quickly. But what happens when, say, I have someone who starts taking multiple flights? Well, it's really expensive to try and scan through and find that person all the time. So something you would do in DynamoDB is create a global secondary index and basically say, hey, I want to copy this table, but now this time I'm going to use a different key. So maybe we change that to member ID instead of reservation, so we can see all the different flights for a person. So here's switch to member ID as our key, and now we can see all the different reservations that maybe this member has made. And then going forward too, right, maybe we're starting to track updates and deletes, seat changes, all sorts of different things. And that's all really powerful here. But if we're doing all of this work and we're, spending the money to copy all of the data again, just to get that secondary lookup, why not copy the data somewhere where you can do even more with it? So this is where Tinybird is going to come in and help us to build out an airline loyalty program. You know, I travel a lot personally and for work, and I love seeing my status tracker and seeing, oh, I have this many flights left until I reach this next status. And you can imagine that's something that your customers want to look at and will help incentivize them to stay loyal to you and keep coming back to your airline. So how can we build this out? Well, we already have our DynamoDB table here. So let's go into Tinybird and see what we're working with. So in Tinybird, you have the concept of a data source. You think of it like a database table. And when you're creating a data source in Tinybird, well, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Hey, Cameron, welcome back. So we have a recently released new DynamoDB connector, as well as all of these other connectors to different popular data services. And this ingestion wizard is really easy to use. I already have one set up with a connection, but if you had a new connection, it kind of just walks you through all the different things you need. The table resource number, which you can find you know, under your table information, your S3 bucket, your region, everything like that. So I can just to show you guys what this would look like. All right. And then in this wizard, it then shows you the access policy and makes it really simple, talks you through, hey, head over to IAM for access management, create a new policy, create a new role, and just go on and copy and paste these in. And so this will help set up that connection for you. So like I said, I already have the connection set. And then once you do it, you can come through the wizard. So here is that data. Cameron, any thoughts or anything so far? I know you had to run for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I will just say that stop me if you already mentioned this, but I think the DynamoDB connector that Tinybird has is really cool. It's really powerful. We already have a lot of customers using it. The reason it's so great is because it uses, first of all, it will import a snapshot of your existing DynamoDB table. DynamoDB table uses DynamoDB point-in-time recovery for that. Basically puts a snapshot in S3 bucket, and then we bring that in. And then it will also subscribe to DynamoDB streams. And so it's actually taking that change stream from DynamoDB, automatically performing the deduplication from that CDC stream, and basically creating this stateful copy of your DynamoDB table, but in sort of this, you know, strongly schemaed, real-time analytics, columnar data source. So same data, totally different data structure, which is really nice. It's almost like, you almost think of Tinybird almost like a secondary index, but with this totally different data structure. So it's a really cool way to sort of bring that DynamoDB data into a space for what April's about to show you.
Yeah. And I mentioned that before too, right? Like global secondary indexes are great, but if you have the same use case as your primary thing, which you want to look up a single thing by a single identifier, and if you're going to go through the trouble of copying all of your data again, why not copy it somewhere where you can get more bang for your buck? All right, so we have our data here in Tinybird. And another thing that we have over here in Tinybird is I have an airports table. So this is one of the great things about Tinybird. You saw when I went over to show you this creation, you can ingest from multiple different sources. And Tinybird is really powerful because it allows you to unify that data from your different streaming or batch sources and do a lot with it, right? Once it's in Tinybird, you're basically, oh, this is all just kind of one database with all of my tables, and I can do all the aggregations and everything that I want using the SQL that you know and love. So we have this airports table here, which has more information about the airports, including longitude and latitude, because on our reservations, we are just using the airport code. So this is going to help us to calculate how many miles a person has traveled and help see, you know, where they are on their journey to having the next level of status. All right, so we have our data here. Within the repo, there is a file that will help seed the database and generate some sample data, so we can, you know, just run this again and generate some more flights here, and we should see those come in. There they are. And, you know, right now, you know, this demo, we got a few hundred rows, but when you think about the scale of the global aviation industry and everything that's happening, like that is massive. And being able to, in real time, get all of that data in and do analytics on it is really powerful, right? Think of how great it would feel if you stepped off your flight after you just crossed a big threshold and they already knew to come and like congratulate you for that next level of status, or that you earned like a new perk that you could immediately use right away. I know I love refreshing my thing in the app and seeing my status.
So that's a really good point. That's
Yeah.
a really good point that you hit on, which is like, you hear people say like, I don't need real time. Real time's not that important. Near real time or batch or what, you know, and it's like the difference in user experience between real time and not real time is significant.
Yep.
And I think, like you mentioned, as a user, it's like, no, I want to refresh and I want to see the new feed. I want to see the new data. I want to see what just happened, and that's really powerful when it comes to user experience. So
yeah, and people, you know, this is a point I come back to all the time, but people who are, you know, not in the tech industry and don't might not, you know how all of these things work. They still know from all of, you know, the social media apps and consumer products that they use that, hey, they love being able to refresh and see all the new stories and see all their likes and comments and everything, right? So even people who maybe aren't technical have this innate, hey, I want my data and I want it now, even if they don't know that's what that is, right? So, you know, if you are a smaller company trying to fight against the massive ones that have hundreds of thousands of engineers working on these things, well, something like Tinybird is very helpful to get you closer to that real-time, well, to bring you to that real-time experience, right? So, all right, we have our data in. So now let's start doing some analytics on it and get some stats. So I am going to go ahead and create a new pipe, and pipes are a way to kind of take your different data sources and run that SQL that you know and love on it and get results. And one thing I love about pipes is that there's different nodes in them, so you can do your SQL queries step by step and kind of understand what's happening each step of the way. So let's go ahead and make this pipe to help us figure out our stats. I'm going to do some copying and pasting, Cameron, because I make a lot of typos. So the first...
I do too.
The first thing we want to do to calculate a member's stats is to get all of the stats for a certain member, right? So right here, we're going to get the flights, origin airport, destination airport, and how much money they spent from that table. I love about Tinybird, you can do a little command click and see over here what the data looks like, what the schema is like, everything like that. This section right here is for deduplication. So Cameron, I know you mentioned this earlier about the deduping when it comes in, but you also can do that in the queries as well, right? With something like, hey, select the max timestamp like this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's it's a good way to sort of perform that final dedupe for sure.
Yeah. So, and then here we'll have where member ID is equal to, this is creating a parameter. So you can create different parameters and use them. So if we go ahead and do a test on this, I'll just throw in a member ID, then we can see all of their different flights, right? All right, so that's great. So we have the first one. So our first node here is getting reservations. All right, now I'm copying a pipe that I already have, so I'm getting some name issues. So all right, we have all their reservations. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to get the coordinates, right? Because we need to calculate the mileage. So this is where we can do a nice little join on that airports lookup kind of table that we have here with the longitude and latitude. So,
and April,
yep.
While you're copying that over, did you talk about query parameters? Did I miss that?
I briefly mentioned, but I would love if you have anything else you want to add on query parameters.
Well,
here.
yeah, I can vamp on that a little bit while you're copying some code in, if you want to copy in that join. But the nice thing, what April added there is using Tinybird templating language, the ability to put that query parameter, define that in the SQL itself. One of the things we often talk about with DynamoDB is, okay, you want to run analytics. You obviously going to have to do things elsewhere. You can't do them in DynamoDB. You're going to have to do them somewhere else. So, okay, you're on AWS. You want to put them in Redshift, or maybe you set up like an Apache Hive on EMR or something, right? And yes, you'll be able to do those workloads, but you won't get that real-time nature. So then you might say, okay, well, instead of using that pattern, maybe I'll run a Lambda to calculate my aggregates, and then I'll shove them back into a DynamoDB table, maybe the same table, and use a GSI, or you put them into another table. The problem there is your aggregates are pre-computed. You don't have the ability to sort of dynamically filter or dynamically aggregated. So the approach here is that you sort of get the best of both worlds. You have this ability to run these really complex, flexible, dynamic SQL-based aggregations, while also getting this tremendous performance and this tremendous speed on the read side. So you're overlapping this OLAP world with the speed that you would expect from DynamoDB. So it's this really powerful pattern to be able to put analytics into an application that's already sort of backed by DynamoDB on the transactional side. And those query parameters are a really good part of that functionality.
Yeah, and we'll see later how they're used as well once we're kind of calling the APIs that we create here. All right, so we have getting the reservations for a person, getting the coordinates of the airports that they're going to, and then next it'll be calculating the miles for that. So there's this function I found in the ClickHouse docs about geodistance, and you throw in the Latin longitudes and it calculates for you. But then I'm converting from meters to miles because, good old American.
Wave our American flags. Yeah. Totally makes sense that a mile is 5,280 feet.
I know. There we go. Coordinates. Okay. And this we'll call miles. And then,
by the way, if you're looking at this and you're wondering why no data is showing up, it's because we have that query parameter in the first node and we haven't defined it. So, we can show that off later. But I was looking at this like, why is there no data?
That's so I'm wondering, Cameron, I'm getting this spinny wheel when I go into test. I'm not sure what I maybe did here. Let's see. Maybe it was stuck on something. But anyway, so you can go in and test values for those parameters here. So I just threw someone in there. So we have, all their different flight information. And then go ahead and getting the latitude and longitude as well as the city names, because we just have those airport codes to go off of, calculating the mileage the distance there. So nice and easy to follow when you go step by step through the different nodes versus having one giant block of SQL that you're trying to keep track of there. And another thing that's nice too is every step of the way, Tinybird is telling you, hey, here's how much it's processing, how long these different nodes are taking, right? So when it comes to troubleshooting, it is pretty helpful to go in and find where you can maybe optimize your queries a little bit more. All right. Now, lastly, since we want to get kind of the aggregation of these stats, I want to see, I want to see what I've already done, but I also want to see for flights that I've booked that are coming up, where am I going to be once that happens? So we're doing some sums of cases where the date is either in the past or in the future. So we can get future and past there. And I'm copying this over from another pipe, so I need to make sure I'm updating the names correctly here. All right, so we got that in. We can go over to our test values again and see. I'm not sure why it's giving me the spinny wheel when I go to test after adding a new node, but let's see. All right, so now we can see, past miles, past spend, future spend, and I misspelled visited here, but you can think of doing other stats as well later, and making much richer user dashboards and getting them excited about all the different places that they've traveled, or encouraging people, doing some personalization. Hey, you've hit all of these airports in this place except this one, book a trip here, we'll give you some sort of discount. I don't know. There's endless possibilities when it comes to kind of personalization, but you need that OLAP database to help you run those analytics to then do the personalization. So, all right. So now we have our stats. And we'll go ahead and create an endpoint for this. And we'll do it off that endpoint node. Confetti, cheers. We're so excited. So now that we have the stats, now we want to use those stats to kind of do a status progress. So I'm going to create a new pipe there, call it status. And again, do some nice copying and pasting here. So then I'll need to update this to use my new pipes. Stats. All right. And again, here, because we have that parameter, we'll need to come in and test it out right in the UI. And there we can see past and future spend here. So nice. All right, Cameron, we have these numbers, but a picture is worth 1,000 words or 1,000 data points. So let's go and make a chart.
Maybe a million.
Maybe a million.
Depends on your scale, right?
Absolutely. So we're going to come in here when you are, viewing your endpoint. Tinybird pretty recently, last few months, launched charts. And, of course, you can use your Tinybird endpoints and do your own visualizations, populate them, right? Like that's part of the power of being able to create APIs in minutes is you can use those APIs to populate whatever you want. But you can also use Tinybird to help you very quickly mock things up, get demos out there, everything like that. And the charts are pretty powerful. So when you're seeing your endpoint, we have this little charts tab here, and we can create a nice chart. So I'm going to call this chart status progress. As my description, I'll put in some of the different levels. So let's just say 10,000 is bronze, 20,000 is silver, etc. I'm going to do a stacked bar chart so I can see the difference between past and future. And then let's come over to data here. we'll do type, past and future for categories, and then no grouping, show legend in chart. And then another thing too, you can also add styling here. So I think I'm good for the styling, but if you wanted to change the colors up, make sure it's with your brand, you can do that. And then you can save that styling as a preset so you don't need to reconfigure it all the time. All right, so we'll go ahead and save this chart. And then once you have the chart saved, gives you the code right here and makes it easy to go ahead and put it into your app. Cameron, do you have anything you want to add about charts here? Let's hear the flavor.
I mean, you know, Tinybird is not a platform for building, you know, charts. That's not sort of like, there's so much more that Tinybird enables, but this is this really great like additional little feature where it's like, hey, you know, we know that a lot of people are building these applications in the React ecosystem. So it's like, you can just take this data, visualize it, and you get a React component ready to go. The other nice thing is that kind of what you're not seeing here is that there's this, you know, there's this library behind Tinybird charts, which even if you're actually not using it to build charts using Tinybird's code, there are a lot of nice like React hooks in there that you can use to sort of fetch data from your Tinybird endpoints, do things like, you know, cache invalidation, and just there are lots of nice little snippets in there in that library. So it can be useful even if, you know, even if you're not using Tinybird's native charts, if you're using a different charting library, that Tinybird charts library has a lot of nice little tools and bits to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And right, when it comes to like, I'm drinking some tea out of my Tinybird mug here, but speed wins, right? And I think a lot of times talking about an idea is one thing, but being able to create a mock-up and help people visualize the idea is really important. So being able to quickly, you know, put together some interfaces with real-time data dashboards is just, it's great. So I'm going to copy this status progress bar chart. So I have my app here. So let's head on over to charts. And just as a reminder, you can go ahead and look at this repo. Spent a lot of time writing out the README. So, you know, head on over and check it out. So here, I'm just going to uncomment this and paste this in. And the one thing that you will have to add here is for your query parameters. So we can go ahead and add this params equals the params that we will add in. So in this case, the member ID for the chart. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then just get rid of this local thing here. Oh. All right. So let's go and see what it looks like. I'll come on over here, grab a member ID. And so we can see there are reservations, there are past ones and ones coming up. And then we can see their status progress, right? So even though I have all of these past miles, well, being able to see, oh, I already have booked, I have trips coming up that are going to kind of put me over whatever that next threshold is really nice to be able to know, hey, should I plan another trip to make sure I can hit the next status level? So I'm just coming in, copying a few different member IDs to kind of see where different people are at here. Cameron, what do you think of this app?
It's really cool. I think I think it's like, it was almost like, looks like, you know, the little mobile app for, I'm a Southwest guy, so it just kind of like gives the vibe, you know. Yeah. The colors are off, they're Tinybird, but yeah, it looks really good. I like it. And the speed is there too. That's the nice thing. It's like, just, you can see how quickly that information is fetching when you provide that new member ID.
Yeah. So let's say, I mean, I know we got through this this very quickly. I kind of sped through here. So I'll just open it up if anyone in the audience has any questions. I will give a couple minutes and see if anything comes in. Cameron has to be right back. And let's see. So, couple other things while I'm waiting to see if any questions come in. How many records are in the sample that it's querying? So, you know, right now I just have, I think, well, where am I trying to go here? So right now I have 599 rows. You know, I can rerun and add more. When I run this seed, it adds 50 at a time. So can come over and see them being added in, right? So just in a couple of seconds there, it's adding more. And you know, Tinybird, it's built for speed and scale when it comes to real time, right? Like massive amounts of data, high concurrency, low latency. Because you can imagine if you have thousands and thousands of people all wanting to check their app at the same time for their status. You know, we need to be able to handle that. So that's what Tinybird is built for.
Yeah, I think maybe to sort of dig into a little bit more Alex's question there is, you know, this is minuscule in terms of this particular use case. But the kind of, you know, performance that you should expect from Tinybird if you have 100 million rows, we're still expecting sub-millisecond. That would be impressive. Sub-second response times on these APIs. And a part of that, again, it's the way that Tinybird structures that data, the way that it's stored, the way that it's accessed. Not unreasonable to expect, you know, 100 millisecond response time, even as you have your data growing to that scale. So, and I will also add, this is a great plug for our customer support team. Does a lot of work helping people understand sort of the Tinybird space. If you're coming from DynamoDB, you're coming from a NoSQL schemaless world, it can be a little different. But we have a really great support team and a really great support community that helps people sort of grok that you know, that new world and the way to structure data, the way to optimize queries to achieve that kind of performance.
Yeah. And you can head over to join the Slack community. You could head over to tbrd.co/community and come chat with us over there. Ask any questions you may have. You know, of course, you can always leave a comment wherever you're watching this video as well. And we have a lot of very smart folks here that can help you with optimization. Any other questions? We'll wait a couple more minutes here. And of course, like I was saying before, you could head over to Tinybird's GitHub and get this repo, try it for yourself. Very detailed step-by-step, not just on the Tinybird part, but setting up the Dynamo part as well. And also, you know, giving some ideas to what else you can build and expand on this. So being able to build your app more to add reservations for the front end, toggling between maybe a member view and a support view, alerts for certain status milestones, you know, all sorts of different things. Analytics from the airline's perspective of, hey, you know, which airports do we have the most high status members coming through, and maybe we should prioritize building a new lounge there or something like that. Or, you know, this airport is very popular, maybe we can do something here. And of course, Tinybird, we have a free tier, no credit card required. You can head over to tbrd.co/try and get in there, try with your own data and use case, ingest from different sources, add them all together, do fun aggregations. I know, Cameron, you have some personal projects that you use Tinybird for yourself, if you want to plug any of those or just kind of mention just as a personal user.
Yeah, I'm not going to plug my stuff, but I will say, like, there's a lot you can do on that free plan. I have an endpoint in production on a kind of a side project that I have, and I don't even come close to the limits of the free plan. So don't tell Tinybird, because I'm not paying them anything for that. But it's the point there being, like, that free plan, it's nearly full featured. You get access to basically everything that you can do in Tinybird. And there's some very generous limits on how much data you can store and process. So it's really good if you just want to explore, like, what can Tinybird do. If you have any kind of sort of like aggregation use case with data in DynamoDB, hop in there, try it out. Let us know if you have questions.
Yep. All right. I don't see any more questions coming in. I know this was a kind of a quick and easy one, but I mean, I guess that's part of the appeal of Tinybird, right? It makes it very quick and easy to get more power, take your DynamoDB data to new heights, and any streaming data from anywhere, really. So any last words, Cameron? Nope.
Nothing. We're good.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Make sure to like, subscribe, put on alerts. We have new content coming out, new live streams, everything to help you on your Tinybird journey. See you all next time.
Bye, everybody.